Country living. Gotta love it. Don't mind the gunshots. That's just how we live out here. So, you'd think the creel would be full by now, right? Well, I started up and was tree trimming just around the house here. And the 200T Husqvarna saw kind of started acting up. It was acting almost like it wasn't getting gas or something. So, I bought this a while back. This is actually the Husqvarna 338T, or what's left of it now. So I was like, well, I'll just see what's going on with it, you know. And of course you get in there and you start looking at the carb, and the carb's not good. And then, oh, you find this yellowish, greenish vacuum line that they used from the factory. It's completely disintegrated. I'm never using this stuff. I had used it a couple times there, but the shelf life on it is weak. The longevity of it is horrible. So, anyways, the piston ended up being horribly damaged. And, of course, you know, I wasn't planning on putting together a video on it. I just had got done servicing my lawnmower, doing yard work, weed eating, all that stuff, and pruning up a couple trees with the little handsaw, and decided, you know what, let's dig in and see how this one's doing. It wasn't doing well. But it's going to be doing well. And I had gone on some forums actually before I got this one, and like looking at the new Husqvarna saws. Oh man, it's starting to rain. Anyways, we're going to dig into the saw. We're going to get it fixed. Welcome to Man Time. Alright, we'll see if the weather's going to cooperate with us here. It's just a little misty out. So, the important part here is getting all this stuff clean, you know, to go back together. And they were nice enough here to give us a new bearing, wrist pin bearing. But let's actually look at the old one here just to double check to make sure we're putting the best thing back in it here. Because over time, these two surfaces have grown accustomed to each other. Yeah, and this saw had plenty of wear, plenty. So we're going to use the, let's see, new wrist pin. We got new keys. Let's see if we can get this piston on here. There she be. Alright, so I've got this lined up so I can figure out like which way the exhaust is coming in. So this is, of course, where your chain goes. And let me just show you something real quick here before we get this going. As you're disassembling, you're going to run into maybe some issues getting this crank out of here. And the way you have to do it is you have to rotate it so the lobes of the crank are kind of up like that, and then it comes right out. But looking at this was all covered in gasket material. So it was actually a liquid type gasket from the factory. So I've cleaned all that up, bench grinder with the wire wheel, and then sandpaper and scraping and getting those mating surfaces really clean there. Because if we add Moto Seal on top of already there gasket, you know, we're going to get less squish, more distance from the top of the piston to the top of the jug there. So that's that. But we want to think about how this is going back together, and also give it one last cleaning. So we're going to clean all of these mating surfaces. You've got three distinct surfaces here. You've got this, which is your lower end on this saw. It's a whole assemble plate type of thing here that includes everything. Super complicated. And then you've got the surfaces on here all the way around the bearings, and then you've got your mating surface in here. So we're going to give those one last brake clean down and then get it all back together. But we have to think about first of all how the crank goes into the lower end here, and again you need to have your crank a certain way there. and it's going to be the long shaft. Of course, the tapered shaft there is going to be your flywheel. It's opposite. And then once that's in there, so you can double check, that's where your clutch is going to go. And then we have to decide which way the piston is going to face, right? So this is going up and down this way. Let's just look at our piston here. Trying to figure out which way is which. So yeah, the piston sets in there, but you can put it on either way, and you have to kind of be careful here which way, because on the top side is where your carburetor's at, right? So you have to be thinking about that. This is bottom, this is top, carburetor on top coming in. Exhaust comes out actually at kind of an angle here, and the muffler sits, don't want to lose these screws, but it sits something like that and comes out and kind of around and out that way. So you just want to make sure all that stuff is aligned going back together, so it's a smooth kind of assembly, because you're going to have the piston on here, you're going to have moto seal on both sides of this. And then the thing with the moto seal too, you want to have, you know, just perfectly clean mating surfaces. So I've already cleaned these, sanded them down actually after removing all the gasket material, and then sprayed them with brake clean. But we'll do that one more time and then go back to assembling this. I think we're ready. Got my piston on there. Now this is kind of a tricky part, and you got to really decide what you're wanting to be doing here, because you want to have oil, of course, on your ring, on these bearings, but just a very, very small amount, because what's going to happen is, I mean, this is the only time you've got to really lube everything, so you want to make sure to do it now. But now you're messing with two kind of opposing factors, right? You've got the grease and oil, which is going to try to not make the moto seal adhere, and you want to have nice clean mating surfaces, of course nice clean hands. Almost want to brake clean on your hands here. Make sure there's no grease or oil or debris on your fingers, and then start going to town with the moto seal. Now I think I'm going to start with the easier kind of areas first, which is going to be on here. Yeah, I was actually working on this last night and decided I just needed to take a step back. This is kind of one of those projects you want to do like beginning of the day, fresh, so you can kind of think through everything instead of like trying to rush through it just to you know, get it done, because it's the end of the day. So let's see how it's doing now. Alright, well, something's going on with the moto seal here. It's just not adhering at all. Alright, the moto seal isn't working, so we're going to try this. This is, let's see here, anaerobic gasket maker. I was told by somebody locally here that this stuff is better than the moto seal. So we'll just put a nice layer on here. Okay, continuing on. Let's start here. Oh yeah. See what's going on there? That is a nice uniform surface, and it's sticking to the surface. I don't know why the moto seal just wasn't wanting to stick to it, but anyway. Okay, there we go. Now we want to do the same thing with all these surfaces, just so we have a nice even coating, and again it was fairly thick on here. See, we got a little bit of cleanup to do here. Got some red on the crankshaft. We don't want that. We don't want anything on there. So now this goes in. Yep. Okay, so that's in there. Gasket surfaces already. Now what we can do to keep that in there, do that. Stay. Okay. Let's see here. Let's spread this around. See there? That is good. That is doing what it's supposed to be doing there, sticking. Make sure it's clean one more time. And I am not going to use a compressor tool because it's just going to be too much of a pain to get it out of there. But from here, I'll line it in there. Boy, there's really no way to, this is just going to be kind of a blind fit because you really got no way to compress the ring up in there like that. Lined up. Okay, I got it. Okay, I think we got her. Look there. We'll see if that anaerobic gasket maker works. Okay, and then bolts, snug it down. Loctite, nah. Well, nah. There wasn't any Loctite coming apart with it, so we will assume there's no Loctite going back together with it. Alright, while we're waiting for this to set up, and man, I hope that's going to work. I've got all of these torqued down. Now, these weren't torqued real tight. You want to make sure that there's a nice layer of gasket in there. And what you can do is then come back after this is dry and knock these out one at a time and put some Loctite on there. I just didn't want to introduce Loctite onto this gasket here. But this is where we can take the opportunity here to do a couple things while this is setting up, and let's just take a look here. Surface prep, did that. Assemble, sealant, excess wipe away. Minimal, it doesn't have a dry time on here. We'll try it out though. Okay, so the next thing we want to do, let's see, there's a couple things actually. I want to change out this bulb, but I want to start trying to get this reassembled also. And this thing was just the weirdest kind of gasket sealing surface here. You've got these two clips that slide together, right, to hold that on there. And the white one was on top. And so we will try to assemble this on here. Oh, maybe it'll snap together. I think. Yeah, when I was taking this off, I just remember going, oh man, this is going to be... Oh, there it goes. Okay. Well, that was super easy. That made that pretty easy. Now you're going to have to shove this through and into here when you're going to reassemble. But I actually found the failure point of this. It was this vent line right here, actually, and it was clogged solid. You can see it still had some stuff in there. Clear now. Good stuff. Okay, let's see. I wanted to talk to you real quick about this yellow vent line that a lot of people use, and some people even use it for fuel line. It's sold as fuel line. It's a yellowish, greenish tubing, and it is just, it was so brittle on here, it just snapped like in a couple different places. So if you've got this saw, and this was going to the bulb, but you can see here, I mean, it's falling apart. It's so brittle. Look at it, just breaking apart. And I had some like new that I hadn't used in a couple years, and I went to put it on there, and as soon as I snugged it over, it immediately ripped. But I'm going back with, and it's this vent line here that runs down and up. I pulled on it and it just snapped. But this stuff, man, it doesn't have a name on it, but this is Echo brand fuel line for like string trimmers and stuff. Super flexible rubber. Again, they've got rubber for the fuel and rubber for the oil, but that weird kind of yellow for the, I guess it's the primer bulb. And I've never liked these primer bulbs. And they're actually one of the first things to go on a lot of these. This one does still work. Well, maybe not. Anyways, I got a new primer bulb. We'll get that on here, and we'll let this set up for several hours and just go through the rest of the reassembly as that's setting up. All right, it's important to get this the plumbing for this actually right, and you never know if like the one-way valve is the same on either one, but you can test it by holding your finger down on one and letting go. See, it's trying to push here, and it's trying to pull there. So this one is going to your carb to cycle gas through the carb, and then this longer one is going to go to your tank. So that line runs here, and it's actually pushing gas back into the tank here. Yep, that's what it's doing. Okay. So I decided to go back with the original stuff that came off of here. And we'll just Loctite. Loctite all this stuff really good. Now, does that mean semi-reduced compression? Well, maybe. But all right, so okay. this. It's a banjo bolt. It's like a lot of your disc brakes have. It's pretty cool. Yeah, see, since this wasn't a failure point, I am going to, there's a little pinch there. Yeah, I don't know. I like and dislike this at the same time. It's hard to say whether that's good or bad at this point. But it was working when I took it apart. And this is, again, another old saw. So let's talk about how much we're putting into this saw, right? The saw itself was about $150. I ended up, I think, getting this one off of eBay. But when I buy a saw off eBay, I pretty much plan for the worst. And that's what happened here. This saw, came completely destroyed. I don't have the piston out right at the moment, but you saw it there at the beginning. So when you're agreeing to buy a saw that you've never seen before, and used to run when I shut it off, not everybody's as honest as you and me. So you've got to kind of assume that there is some things either people forgot or they're leaving out, and you know what I can do? I can do a little lower end check here. So anyways, I paid, my thinking was that by paying $150, then the new jug is another $150. I'm paying about the same as I did for the Husqvarna 200T clone G111, and so that was kind of my decision making there. Even if it's bad, of course it was, and then the jug, I'm still $300 in for what's considered, I guess, the best Husqvarna top handle, and now it's going to be new with the jug, and everything else on here looks pretty good. So, carb rebuild kit, of course. So I'm all in about $320, somewhere in there. So, man, I hope this gasket works. It looks a lot like the Loctite gasket. And the Loctite gasket, it actually may have worked. I tried the Loctite gasket maker, the red stuff like this, on the 365 initially, and it broke through, but the Moto Seal broke through also, and it's just because it's got such a thin sealing surface. I'm thinking this is going to act a little bit better for us, so we'll see. Looking pretty good so far. We're starting reassembly here, and one tip as you're taking this apart, I took this off because I couldn't really see what all screws I needed to remove in order to get this thing apart. Well, it looks like in order for this, yeah. So this has got to be actually moved over in here, I think, in order to get that in there. So let's see here. Yeah, I think that's got to be over here before this goes in. But you don't have to remove this. I just took this off because I really was struggling to get the thing apart. I didn't really have a good frame of reference for what all needed to be taken apart there. Okay, so that's Loctited down. Let's see here. Yeah, looks like left. If we loosen it, we're going to be adding more. Yeah, I don't know exactly the right way to, put all this stuff back together in, like they would have done at the factory. But from taking it apart, you're going to do, the same basic thing. You took it apart, but if you're trying to learn how to take it apart, maybe this will be helpful for you. So I left the wiring in here. I left this vent tube in here, and the cylinder, it comes in and out from this side here. And of course, you got your oiler line there. So the oiler was the last thing to get disconnected. So we'll hook that one up first. So that's going right there, and on the other side of that, of course, is your oiler. And you may need to spin it around here so it doesn't bind going in there. And that's just kind of lining it up there. Now, gonna need to kind of shove it in to get it going in there. And then your boot here, you're gonna want to align that as you're going back together with it. The boot was another one of the last things to get that aligned in here. And what I'm going to want to do here is shove it over to the left side and then get it started going in on this corner up here, if I can. I think it's just going to be easier to kind of work from this side, getting it in there. So maybe you can see down here. You're going to have to work around your vent line here, but you can kind of crunch it in against itself to get it going in here. When we're at it here, we can line up that. Oh, there we go. So it was kind of hanging right on this. Now that that's off of there, everything's lining up where it should be, and that should help us. Oh, there it goes. Popped right through there as soon as I got it off of there. Nice. Okay. All right. So now right away we can put in some screws to kind of hold it together. Okay, so now we've got everything kind of held in place, and then you've got, of course, the screw in the back here. But let's look at some of our vacuum lines. See, this vacuum line lines right up with that. Okay, so there's our lower end pressure. Now we've also got, let's see, we already hooked up our oil. So that's going to be, yeah, that's going to be all of the connections for that. Good stuff. All right, so here we've got our coil. Alright, we got this all blown out. We got our coil in there. Now when I took this apart, I took it out with the coil attached to the jug like that. And you just have to pop it out. There's a little hole right there where it goes through. You can't actually put the coil on. Well, there's a little room right in there. You might be able to get that boot through there, but I had to like slide the head over to get the coil in there. And you can get the exhaust on with it assembled in there like that. I've also got the screw in up there, and I mean, it's going together pretty quick and easy. It's not bad. I heard some people saying it was kind of a nightmare to figure out that order. But if you're like me, I mean, you just start taking bolts out, and if you need to put a bolt back in, you just put it back in. Otherwise, kind of like with that oil adjuster there, just pulled it out and you need to go back in, it needs to go back in, right? go. Okay, now this is a little interesting. This has a tab deal that that sits right there, and then our nut. I'm actually going to put a little Loctite on this, just a little bit. And we'll get it snugged on here. And what I use is just an impact. Okay. That's all good there. Nice and tight. Alright, so now our coil, we want to get it around to the magnet side with just a little thin piece of cardboard in there to keep it at a good distance. These are all Loctite down right here. Okay, so we've got good clearance. Nothing's hitting anywhere. I can hear that lower vent line going. Okay, let's see here. Alright, so I didn't tighten this one up all the way. Let's tighten this up all the way. And then tighten these down. Again, that's going into plastic there, so don't get them down too hard. Let's see, another electrical connector here. Get that hooked up. I feel like you want to go under. How about that? Yeah. Okay, there's our on-off. I think that's pretty much it for this side. I don't see anything else that needs hooked up over here. Everything's Loctited and everything's tight, so I think we can just go right back on with our recoil here. Now I've taken pounds of dirt off of this, pounds, and this was a good running saw before it started having issues and was put up. I mean, it makes you wonder what a bad saw is, right? If somebody says, oh yeah, well, this is known to have, like, bottom end issues. Oh, Jesus. Do you even want to pay for that saw? I don't know. Alright, so let's clean our mating surface here. And I'm going to use a little bit of this orange stuff because it's what I got laying around. And I had to shove the screwdriver in there to mix it, so it's a nice little applicator. Now if you've never used this before and want to permanently stain your jeans or shirt or whatever orange, just go ahead and wipe it right off on your jeans or your shirt. They will be orange forever. Very few things to put back together still on this. Get some grease on our clutch sprocket bearing here. I like the Valvoline myself, but to each their own. Let's just make sure I'm going back in the correct order here, because you've got, yeah. Yep, that's right. So this goes on here. Let's try to put it in with this. it aligns with your oiler, and then you've got a washer. Yep. And then you've got, of course, your clutch. I think this one goes all the way up to a 19. Yeah. And give it a little bit there. See how easy that's turning over? That's because that little automatic decomp in there. That is pretty cool. Okay, next thing, the carburetor, I really need to put a kit in this. Of course I'm not going to. And we're just going to try it without the kit. And get burned once again. So, such is life. Okay, so let's see here. Oh boy, getting this throttle hooked up is going to be a real chore. I think that was the throttle was the last thing to be disconnected, and it was really hard to get it aligned in here. But all I'm doing there is just aligning it through the intake. There we go. You've got, let's see here, fuel inlet here. Fuel's on. You've got this coming from your bulb. That's going to go here. And then, let's see here, choke. How did the choke go on here? I guess I'm going to try to, let's see. Okay, so it's pulling. Let me just move this around here and down here with the choke. It can slide out to here. And this is going to go in there. Okay, so there's our choke. Not working yet, but that's okay. Alright, so now the most important part is getting this aligned in that little hole. So this is going to be a little challenging. You know what? Does that go like that, you think? I'm going to have to come back to that. Alright, there we go. It looks like, yeah, there we go. Alright. Yeah, so the oil, it's got this channel rubber seal here. So it's going to seal to the back of this, and then oil is going to flow from there up and then through and out our oiler here. I bent these tabs back a little bit so they rebite, and then there you can see that channel. That all looks good. I've got this little bar we can just put on here to test fit everything. I think it's like a 14. But yeah, we'll try this out like this. Now I can almost guarantee it's not going to work, but you know, that's where wishful thinking comes in. It's one of those days. This shirt used to be like all, like maybe that color, and now it's like the worst color ever. But let's see here. We've got we've got the Husqvarna 338 XPT, and this thing is like 40 cc's. It's got a 40mm piston. It's super stout. So let's pump up the bulb. This is going to be first start after doing the new jug. It's been setting up all day. It's got to be fine. I never even checked it for spark. It may not even have spark. Oh, I think I heard a running sound. Okay, I went a little too far there, opening up the idle screw. That must have been, it's got a half throttle. I didn't know that. When you pull the choke back and push it back in, that's like half throttle. All right, let's do heat cycle number 2 here. We are completely cooled down. Yep, completely cooled down. Let's go back to full choke. Pump it up. Now, before we get it fired off here, and it's noisy and I can't talk. Some gotchas on this one. I'm still a little hesitant on the anaerobic gasket and the Loctite red gasket. The last time I tried that, when it got hot, it was super liquidy and wanted to flow. So I'm not quite sure about it yet. But let's see, other gotchas on here. Let's see, this Zamacarb. I don't know a way to get the like adjusters for the high and low jet, so it's fully adjustable. So I'm kind of at the mercy of what it thinks is the right settings. Let's see, beyond that, not too much. It went together pretty good. New piston, new jug, second heat cycle. Let's see how it goes. Pretty tame, but then there goes the gas. I did put a new fuel filter on here. I felt like maybe that could have been an issue. It seemed like on that first heat cycle it wasn't getting quite enough gas. So I've got the low jet open like all the way up, which is, you know, you've got a half a turn adjustment. Yeah, it's starving for fuel. I didn't do the carb kit in this one because the diaphragm was like, it felt like brand new. It felt really nice. And the jug is already just red hot, so I'm going to hold off on trying this again until I get the rebuild kit and the carb. And then we'll do a follow-up video to check up on it. Country living. So that's going to do it for today on Man Time, guys. Get out there, have you some man time too.